Yo, what up? It's Mr. New. And man, this is like my third video, but I got a question for y'all, man. So I really like coming in and going to Chat GPT and asking questions that I would ask as a child and that I would ask other adults as an adult, and seeing the reactions because I like to see development based upon people's responses. So this is going to be called a series of conversations with ChatGPT or something of the sort. And I want to give you guys the results of my conversations that normally start off pretty simple, bro. Simple shit, but because it's so simple, people disregard it because they've been programmed. So this is a good, nice, easy way to reflect and open up your brain to your own vast wisdom. And when you do so, you'll be able to expand your perspective, which is how you feel about information. Then you can seek to alter your perception, which is the experiences you use to confirm as evidence of the feelings that you have in existence in reality. Yeah, I feel this way right now while doing this. So, looking at this, I want to give you a little bit background. So let's go back. All right, so we went back in time, and now we are here. And back in time, I would ask questions to people like, man, if this earth is so big, but the sun is so much bigger, even bigger than the solar system, why is there darkness in the sky between me and when I'm looking at a planet that's far, far away? If it's light over here and light over there to where I can see it in the sky, why is the sky black? So people be like, oh, it's because the sun is so much bigger than we're talking about, and the earth spin, and when it rotates, it casts a shadow on itself. And yeah, so why the fuck is over there? Why is all the way over there lighting up? And it would just be little things, and really, it was just to see how people would respond. And so I would categorize people. And then when I became a teacher, I would do the same thing because it was part of my job. I had to grade people based upon how close or how far they were when they got an answer correct. And then how confident or how much of a guess this was, on the correct side. And so we're looking for mastery is what we will say in the classroom, but we're actually judging things upon nothing. So we enact some kind of median in order for us to measure, and then we can observe a change or not. So this process works the same way all over the place, but in reality, the paper that you're using in order to create a unit of measure, that is what we call time. And so going into the conversation, let's go back in time, or let's go back to the future. Whoa. So we back in the future now. I asked ChatGPT this. I said, yo, if 1 times 0 is 0, why? And so mostly I'm like, because 0 times anything is 0, the typical shit that you would say. And then, but if you ask the high school kid that, they're going to be like, 0. What you mean, bro? If they ask a middle school kid that, they're going to be like, bro, come on, what you mean? It's 0. And then you ask an elementary school kid, upper elementary, like a 4th grader, they'll be like, it's 4. What are you talking about? It's 4. If you had a 2nd grader, them niggas gonna be like, I just discovered this. 0. Ask a kinder, they'll be like, number? What? What the fuck? 0. What? So, because those are layers of that understanding, right? What I'm saying is that if you have a layers of what information is known, we should also have layers of information that isn't known. It's not just you stupid as fucking don't know shit. No, you just don't have this exact answer, but are you close? Do you have context? Do you got a few ideas? Do you got some evidence that can lead you up to the motherfucking step? And all you need is just a leap, and then you can be in there. Like swim where? What do you do? Well, ChatGPT can do a lot. So I said, yo, what's going on with this? Why is 1 times 0 not 1? And then he said, well, it's because of, first, the additive property of addition. You know, if you added things together, you're adding the same thing together. 1 plus 1 plus 1, right? Or 1 plus a group of ones called 2, and that equals 3. But again, this is just what we call operation. It's measurements. Take that shit to the next step, multiplication now. That's supposed to just be fast addition or grouping, right? So these terms that they're using, it's holding in structure across all of our maths, but it does not hold within our sciences, in our theories, in our concepts. And so I challenged it. And the way I set my Chat GPT bot up is, it's supposed to be my toughest scrutinizer, my biggest hater. It's supposed to hate on me anytime I give it anything. It's built to be a hater. And so when I have all of this hateful ass energy, evidence and things, I got to target it specifically and combat it. And it's easy to do because of Algebra 2. In Algebra 2, it helps us show ourselves that we know we have things missing called a variable. Then we got a formula that we can refer to, and then we can have equations that can match the formula. Or we can rearrange some shit to where it looks like it, even though it started off looking like something completely different. These are simple fucking questions, simple understandings, things you should have learned in middle school and high school, definitely over again in college in your general studies. But this information is just received because when I give you this example, it'll make sense. ChatGPT gave me an understanding. It was like, well, if I have A plus 0, that should equal A, right? Because there's no change that occur. But if you inject B, and then if you have A plus B equals it, and I was like, well, hold up. Nigga, what the fuck is B? You said there was 1 and a 0, and we're multiplying. So how the fuck could there ever exist something outside of 1? That you literally have to make something else up in order to identify that something else is being included. So that right there is where we started to see the flaw in the logic, and then we created some axioms to help us see that. When we're looking at the axioms behind the proofs of the mathematics, we're starting to see how these things link together behind the logical expressions, and then how that sequences across a pattern. And this is how we build the formulas and how these things can be structured across all spaces and time. But to not get too far off in the cuckoo land, we got to start to see the differences. And the main differences come from the identity. So ChatGPT was like, well, if you got some apples and you don't add any apples to the basket, then there's no change in the apples. But I was like, but if I didn't do nothing to the apples, why did you say I didn't have no apples, opposed to talking about the change in the apples? And so this is how we establish the differences between the observable change, the observable measurement, versus the inferred measurements, and then expected outcomes. Those things is what we do, but we can change those things because those things don't happen at the same time. So if we can embed different start times for people, you get a 5-second minus, everybody else go, you gotta wait 5 seconds, you're the fastest, go. Damn, that nigga still beat everybody. 5-second head start, still won. Damn. That's the kind of energy that I'm talking about. So to make this long ass story a little bit more short, we came up with a new mathematical theory upon zero. So I'm gonna put the paper in the chat. I'll put the paper somewhere. But the idea is, Zero is not anything, which makes it something like a variable. And because variables represent a reference point of knowing what I don't have versus what I'm going to obtain, it makes you realize that what I do have, knowing that I have to find it, that is that outcome. And the other side is what we call a solution, a no solution, and an infinite solution. Those three types of ways I can be right is showing us what we call values. Universal values and morals say that people should be able to live their life, and that's universal. That would be an infinite solution. Nobody want to be subjugated to other people. I want to do me. Just doing me. Just doing what I see. Anyways, then you got a one solution. Yeah, this one thing works for me. But, this one thing works for me too. Cool. We are both included within this set. We are solutions. But then my best friend could be like, that shit does not work for me. It's not a solution. You're not included in the set. Again, we're living this mathematics, but how can you add nothing to something and make it reduce down to zero? That is the question of that. That's the premise of that logic behind that question of why does 1 times 0 equal 0 and not 1? Again, so the idea of what I'm trying to bring to you is we have to do something extra. And we consider this as intuitive, but it's not. It's just practiced over time. And so when I'm looking at the idea of something being multiplied, I got to realize that I've introduced some other object. Now, because there's only one thing, I now must alter my perception of what that one thing is. And so I can say one whatever unit, which implies that everything is dualistic. It's a number and a word. Oh, remember when your teachers was like, it's 1 what? You got 5 what? Nigga, apples. You got 5 apples, nigga. Like, that's the energy, because we're trying to keep you in line with the principalities of the logic. But when you forget that, then you forget how to behave in society, because what you think is logic is just a program. And so programs need to be updated. Who wants to watch old school movies all the time? I gotta feel that. But I like this new shit. Nobody wants an old Nokia phone when they can get some new shit. So, again, I know it seems like I'm going on a rant, and it all started off with this simple question, but really, it's to get you to understand that change operates the same way. So, if you want a little bit more on that, here's a little bit more on that. So if I have 1 times 1, that equals 1. If I have 2 times 1, that equals 2. If I have 1 times 252, that's 252. We're looking at how 1 times something returns to something. But if I have 1 to the 0 power, it turns back into a 1. If I have 252 to the 0 power, that turns into 1. If I said 1,000,000 to the 0 power, that also gives me 1. So what the fuck is going on? How can everything be 1 when I try to take it to the next level? Why is it capped back at just one thing? Well, no matter what level of school you at, nigga, you in what? School. And that's what it's saying. No matter which park you're at, nigga, where are you? Park. So I just want you to rock with me with this logic, because this is where math comes from. Math comes from logic and how we can see the world, but the perception of the world comes from how you can be resourceful with you. How creative can you be with what you got? And so this is hard for a lot of people, but it's easy for a lot of people. You are probably just trying to do it in a space that makes it seem difficult. So for me, materials chemistry or material science is like the hardest thing in the world for me, but it's actually the easiest thing because I do it. But let me give you the perspective. I just learned this perspective watching a YouTube video, but The perspective is materials chemistry is all of this material shit in the world and how it interacts with the world. So it's just like people. If you just, it's all kinds of people and how you interact with people, there's certain behaviors that can be predicted. So how this material is placed in an environment, we can predict behaviors or not. And so that's the whole thing. I want to test you. And that's the thing. Sometimes when I test you this way, I get no reaction. Sometimes when you test me that way, I'm blow the fuck up. Sometimes you test me this way, little bit of changes happen. We're just looking at when I test your ass, what happened. That's the psychology and the people talk. But on a chemical level, I'm looking at changes. Does it get rusty? Does it break? Does it melt? What happens? Tell me the story, please. So that's the story of me having a conversation with ChatGPT upon 1 times 0 equaling 1 and not 0. And so we created this identity principle. Identity principle is a word coined by Gavin Wentz through existics and that whole entire field of mathematical study and quantum analysis upon time. Definitely check him out. But with me, what is the idea is if there's a 1 times 0, which always returns back to 1, then I took ChatGPT and I came to the conclusion that we should use this as a symbol 0 to the 1 power that will return back into some flux or undefined 0. And the reason why we should redefine it at this way is because we can look at now no changes that happen closer or further through the aspect of potential, and this potentiality comes from the reoccurrence of previous experiences. So, in other words, looking at, like, let's say negative numbers, they're always going to be negative until they become a 0 and then cross over into the positive. There has to be a threshold. The threshold is that 1. You have to be able to take something from being nothing into something, but the only way you can do that is if you take it from something into nothing again. So do things twice. I know that's a little bit harder, but harder to understand. But again, I got the paper. It's an APA format. I think we got a little chart and some definitions, all of this shit for you. Read up. I'm posted on LinkedIn for show. And I'll try to get it on the other platforms. But yeah, man, I'm going to break this up into a couple videos. But I'm Mr. Renew, man, and this is Conversations with ChatGPT. Yeah, peace.